Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast Live here, and first things first, Captain Nemo, it's great to have you on board. I really enjoy seeing your name come up on the chat screen, and I hope all is well with you and your family out there in West Germany. So thanks for taking the time to join us here. And just a bit of a recap here. Yesterday, we started this whole program on this GT40 commission piece, and it is an illustration for, as I stated, for a very nice family, and they commissioned me to do this piece. And boy, lo and behold, we started yesterday, and about maybe 10 or 15 minutes into the program, we had a sound difficulty, and I wasn't sure what was the difficulty because everything was good on our end. And just to make sure we're good, Nemo, is if you're there, could you confirm? Can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure that that's still coming through nicely, because I'm getting all the mic systems here coming up very well and performing well. So cool. Hey, Hype, how you doing there? Hey, good deal. Hello, Shadow. How's everything? Good to have you on board as well. You know, even though you're next door, it's kind of nice to have you sneak in here. So it's always good to have you guys on board here. But let me go back and just kind of recap where we were yesterday. Interesting thing that came up was the fact that I started, as I said last week, a very good friend, an incident came in and looked at the work and said, I'd love to have you, commission you to do a piece of T40 illustration piece. I said, I'd be happy to. So, you know, I spent some time over the last couple of days last week just laying out some real fast pencil sketches. I came up with this one. Is just interesting how I put it together, and I thought, you know, the view is okay, the composition's all right, but there's just something about the graphics on this thing, and let me explain why. It just kind of disturbed me a little bit. It was the Ken Miles variation that ran at Le Mans, and it was the Golf sponsored machine. Had the baby blue, the light blue Golf paint scheme, but it had these very strong and bold eyebrows over the top of the headlamp graphics, and it just wasn't the right composition. Plus, you know, the other thing that really I just questioned was the fact that it wasn't muscular enough. It didn't look like it had the right view. There's a very high tail in this thing, and it did have that, but the view wasn't quite right. So I just went, finished a pencil sketch and showed it to the client and said, well, you know, it's interesting, but he agreed. He said, you know, this is not quite the same muscular approach that this machine had. So from that generation, I just went ahead. Let me switch gears here for a second here. From that generation went to this, where I think it has a lot more muscle to it. All of a sudden, it's got some real scream. So I'm much happier with it, as is hopefully the client will be as well. It just has a lot more character to it. It's a better perspective. And what I think is interesting about the view here is it shows off some of the muscle. It's not as heavy back here, kind of diminishes some of the recorder on this beauty. It really plays up the real subtle surface development up in the front end area here. It's very, very subtle, but very taut machine. So I thought it was a much better composition. So I'm going to spend some time today going back in and just kind of fine-tuning some of the little fit bits and getting some of the graphics put together. Take my time and do this and take it stage by stage by stage, and slowly introduce this thing and just build it up to a final piece and crescendo here. If you notice ahead of time, I went back in and got some of the little fussy bits out of the way. Tires and shadow down, some of the headlamp graphics, some of the intake pieces, and the reveal moldings on the glass, just to kind of speed the effort up a little bit so it doesn't become so tedious to look to and look at. So let's go back in and start to look at this thing and just start to tone in what might be taking place here. So I'm going to go back and get a nice light marker and just restain this lower portion, this lower valence, so we can take a peek at that. I'm going to get a little bit of scrub line in here. Just going to get this shadow to kind of a little folder that's underneath this guy. Get a little bit of boldness in through here. Take this shadow in through down to the ground line. Just a little bit more detail and through here as well. A lot more to character, just to kind of real quickly to blush in like a second or third stain of whatever I got established. Let that kind of blend in. Pick up that little offset here. Let it disappear across the bow or the nose of the machine. A little more passing through, kind of stain that back just a little bit more so it's not as bold. And just drop that in just a touch. Same through here, just a little bit more lamp graphic in here. Take the IP and just kind of walk across it one more time. Get a little more. I'm going to pick up the glass reflection in this guy in just a minute here. I just want to make sure that this thing starts to really look like it's got some business to it. A little shadow inside this intake piece. Let's drop that in place. And again through here. And just subtle, very subtle touches all the way through. And it will make a big difference in just getting the form to read real well. Let's take this down the ground line too. Just kind of mark this right back. Let's take this right back as a pattern. There you go. Much better. And kind of scream that in there. A little bit of reflected light to kind of carry it through. And there it is. A little bit more bone in through here, where the boldness of that foam, that surface really bulges out, and you begin to see what the shapes are actually doing. It comes out, goes back in again, carries back into the belt line. And let's put a little more daylight through here and just kind of drop off some of that, and a little shadow underneath that little intake piece on the recorder. And then back to highlight, again, back in through here again, a little bit of shadow. Real subtle. It's a white, racing white with the blue accent stripes and so forth in it. So let's take a look at that first. Let's kind of lay these in and begin to look at getting the graphics down here. Let's get this started here. Go over the top of this. Put some of the racing stripes in place here. It's a little bit sure to just fill in some of the real puzzle pieces here to kind of just take our time, plot it in. Just switch over a little bit. It's a very subtle set of circumstances, so I don't want to overpower it too much here. Just take it nice and easy. Let the form really come through and read nicely. Lay a base color and come back over and put a little more highlight in it. A little bit more suspense, just taking our time, painting in the surfaces. So bit by bit, with just a little bit of color in this thing. Great shadow. All right, good deal. A bit of that back here. Just gonna sneak that in, that little bit of color back in the tail deck and the spoiler. Just enough to let it peek underneath that form. There we are there. Now we're gonna come back into the front end section here. And just gonna pick this up just a touch. There it is. Into this, into the scallop around the letter, the number rather. this base down here. I'm going to switch gears on this guy since it's much clear away from the light source. A little deeper with this guy and put some real impact in this front portion where the striping is. That's better. Yeah, we got some real chroma to it. Nice. That blends it in nicely here. Get that out of the way. Knock that in. Remember on the letter form, we'll come back a little bit more with some highlight and get some more temper on top of this guy to kind of bring back some of the, little by little, we'll just get this form to really sing here. Let's do this, turn this around just a touch, get that kind of clean up along the cowl. Let's come back in and get that second piece, wrap it around here. Into the number graphics, into the cowl. Very delicately into that number 1, just touch it there. Bring this in, kind of stain it just a little bit. Let's come right around this form and just kind of bring in that number 1 here. Let's kind of turn this upside down, pardon me, just for a moment here. Come down the nose piece now. Take it around the corner, into the radius. A little bit of highlight in there. Let's turn this upside down just a bit here. Pardon me for moving around quite a bit. I want to make sure we just get the nice tone lines in place here. Lay the base in first and pick up some of the details just a little bit further down the line here. Get some of the subtleties down here, and we can start to put a little bit more softness into this thing. As I said, just getting some of the hard graphic pieces in place first. Then we can kind of go back and finesse some of the shapes we want to deal with here as we go down the line. Let's put another little secondary stain over the top of this and smooth it out. Take that point right there. Just got to bring it in, bring that in. And just because of the actual surface change here, this little odd thing happens up on the top of that shape. Notice happens right in through here. You get this coming in. Again, light source change. I'll come back and work that out with a little bit of some pencil work later on as we get this thing stained in here. It's just a little bit lighter. Take it around the form here just a bit. Put the numerical piece. There it is. It starts to lay some of the graphics in place here. Then we'll go ahead and take a minute here just so I can find my paper clip that I seem to have lost again. There it is, I think. Keep this stuff in tow. There it is there. So let's come back in and just start to pick up a little bit of this glass surface here. I'm going to come back in and just get some of this very high contrast glass put in place here. Let's kind of get this stained in here, kind of fill in some of the blanks. Take it right in the side glass as well. A bit of reflective quality in here. A bit of real estate. Let's get the basic tint in first. Then we'll put a lot of detail back into some of the reflections and material that comes into the play of the form itself. The shadow of the rearview mirror, keeping it nice and subtle. It's very graphic all the way through. So we're starting to build this guy as it comes off the paper here. So hope this is making sense for you, gang. But no, so I'm just starting to really put in some of the basic architecture here to work with, and we're going to come back in and really start to take a good look at much more detail. And let's go back in and get some of these interior components put together, and just get this glass straightened out here so we have a little more transparency in the form. Get that little insert piece on the cowl itself. So I'll come back in again, the number 6 gray, and then maybe a number 5, and just kind of fill in the blanks here. Get some of this to work. Across the top of that brow, maintaining some of that clarity in here. So we get a little more reflection in here, and then take it right to the top of the crash pad. So we're going to start to slowly build the graphics up in this guy. What do you think here, gang? Coming along all right? Let's go back in and soften up a little bit of the glass here with a nice gentle 3, kind of fill in the gaps and get a little more reflection in this glass. Now we've got something to really work with here. Let's kind of tone this in. A little more transparency in it. Take that through it. And slowly build some reflections. See what's happening now? I'm trying to get a lot more graphics into that cockpit area now, and just slowly down, putting the glass together and just getting it all to kind of read nicely here. Let's go back and pick up maybe a number 6 and drop this in just a little bit more. That's a little better. It's getting a little stronger on the side glass there. It's going to do this. So we can kind of pick up another variation on theme here to get a little bit more boldness into this thing, this body side. Plus, I'm going to drop the shadow down just a bit more off the rearview mirror. There it is. The details around the fuel caps. Let's come back in again and hit this one more time. Yeah, that's better. A little bolder, a little reflected light back in the glass area there. And let's carry that right over to this piece as well. Up on the A-pillar and the radius, and again, much more reflective in the glass. A little deeper. Just needs a little more impact in this thing. Let's see what we've got here. Is there a 7? Yeah, there we go. Let's get some real solid impact on this guy. That's better. All of a sudden, hopefully, look how bold this is starting to come together here. The graphics are starting to really pick up the patterns here nicely, getting into the glass surface themselves. And what I'll start doing is putting a little more detail back in some of the line drawing here and make sure that that screams okay. Let's go back and I'm going to pick up some of this darker blue again up on top of the header here. So I kind of stain that in a bit more. One more pass. Yeah, just a little bit more touch here and there. Let's come back in and pick a little bit of this intake piece. Get a little sharper with that guy as well. That can kind of come right down and pick up a nice, I think I've got a solid black here somewhere. And we'll pick one up here. How's that? We'll just go back in and pick up a little bit more graphics in these intakes. It's time to put a lot more animation back into this form. I think it can stand to take it. There's a lot of subtle surfaces in this machine, but just these little intakes and some of these bolder areas, and you kind of spell them out and make the comment with them, and not be afraid of really boldly laying it in there and letting the forms work. So that's going to help us there. I'm going to come across that brow. And slowly but surely, start to put some life into this thing. So there it is. And there it is. A little bit of a return of reflected light off of that shape coming in off the actual cowl itself, or the actual intake of the number. And we'll start to put a lot more zip into this thing. Let me just kind of flatten this out a little bit here. So let me thank your gang so far. Making sense? Not at my desk, come back and boom, color about you. Yeah, wow, yeah, just a little bit more color to it. It's very subtle overall operation here. So let's kind of do something first here. Let's kind of scrub in some of the wheel graphics and get them started. Tone back the rims a little bit, kind of knock those down just a touch. Real loose, scrubby, more athletic in this thing. Around that knockoff. Back out of it again. Let's add a little bit of color to this thing. Start to slowly build this up. A lower warning lamp. Let's get a little bit of Gulf pattern in here. Little sidewall on the body. What do you think, gang? Is this coming together right for you? Is it making sense? What do you think, Nemo? Gonna carry on here, or are we all right? Let me see if I can get a little bit of framework around this number so it's nice and delicate. First of all, I'm gonna just make sure we get a little more tone in this reflected light back inside this offset here. To fine tune some of the radius so it doesn't look so erratic. That's better. And then through here, a little more tone on that side. Take it down. Now the shadow on that side, much bolder. That's a lot healthier. So what do you think here, gang? Let's kind of do this. Let's get a little bit of that, let's get some of the wheel graphics placed in here. At number 5 and kind of knock that out a little more.
Yeah, I said, hey, Gloria, put you on the email list and get on the thing. Nope, no answer. Starts now.
pretty quiet out there, gang. Making sense? A little smoke pattern in here as well. Let's get that knock off the read. I'll come back with a little more highlight on this. Kind of bring those wheels up in speed just a bit. I want to knock them out too much. I just want to drop them back a little bit and see what we've got here. Great, I'll come out of the bay. There you go. Interesting. Very cool, Nemo. It's just, yeah, we're just going to bring it on the paper very subtly. There's a lot of graphics. There's a lot of odds and ends and pieces of parts here. And I want to make sure we kind of take the time to filter properly before we start adding some of the softness to it. And that's coming. This pastel bit is a lot more forgiving. We come back in and pick up that little. Let's come back. Let's kind of evaluate that just for a second here. This is where we are. I'm going to come back in a little bit too fussy. Some of the glass graphics here. Let's kind of knock that out. Much better. Just. And we'll come back and build some more reflection in another format here. In fact, let's do that. We'll get a real good solid black in here now. Really punch this thing out. I'll come back in here in a little bit with just a touch more highlight to kind of get the glass to kind of jump and read for us here. But we're going to drop this thing out as best we can here to make sure there's a lot of impact, high contrast in the graphics, really in the glass area. That's where we're going to get a lot more of the jump. So let's come back in here and get this all straightened out. Let's come back and put more horizon line in this thing. I think it's a real constant battle of just constantly animating surfaces to make sure that they read properly and they have the right impact at them. And I think that takes a little bit of time and patience, so thank you for hanging on here, gang. Let me just stop there for a second. What do you think? I mean, the basic overall content is coming together. I don't want to really scruff up an awful lot of stuff here in terms of, let's put a little bit more, there's another little detail piece in through here that does the following. There's a touch more color. And we get this racing platform piece over the top of the Gulf insignia here. Let's put a little more impact and some of that shadow work in through here. So we're going to let that intake come over the top. Same down here. Pardon me as I rotate the pad just a bit here, the paper. I want to make sure that shadow reads nicely. And again, reinforcement on the rear view mirror mount. right over the top of that piece. All right, what do you think here, gang? Coming together all right? Let me stop there just for a second and take a look at that guy. Some of the surfaces are working pretty well. Let's hope that's the case here. Now the fun part. Now we've got most of the hard line pieces in here. I'm going to do something really quickly, just real fast. Right, find the right. Yeah, here we are. Let's put a little more drop in this thing. There it is. Let's touch more of this down below here. The reflection of that shadow, the ground work here. So far, so good. We're just getting that body to roll a little bit here, and we're starting to get that thing to read. What do you think, gang? Coming along all right? Now the fun part. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit here. Now I'm going to stop and just take a moment here, kind of review, wait for some Q&A or questions or concerns you might have coming in here. Notice that the real primary mission here is to get the graphics down. The graphics meaning, for example, this vehicle, since it's a white body, there's so many subtle surfaces in this machine. For example, this body, it blisters out, but at the same time rolls back in, goes flush, and kicks back up again. So there's some real subtle things in here. And that you don't want to do those subtleties with things like a marker. You want to come back in with a pastel. It's almost like an airbrush system now. So I'm going to switch gears here for a moment and just slowly pat in some of the things that might dictate where some of these subtle surfaces are first. But first, let me do this too, so we don't lose sight of where we are here. Let me make sure I get this started here. Let's get this graphics in place so we don't interrupt it as we go through it with pastel. Let's get the number designation in. Just to outline it first so it keeps it nice and clean. Then we're going to start adding some of the soft airbrush quality to this guy now, which makes a huge difference. That kind of brings it all together and it keeps it real gentle, but at the same time makes a statement because you're very under control to get the thing done very nicely and not pushing too much media. Sometimes we push so much media, it destroys some of the impact of what we're after here. So let's do this. Let's come back in here. Pardon me for jawboning. I just want to explain what the next steps are going to be. Get the body form to work for us here so we get the right contour. We'll do the same thing up front here. Just to kind of delicately frame it in. Again, I'm being very respectful here. This is a commissioned piece. I want this thing to just really sing. Taking my time, being very diligent about what has to take place here, because this is a client piece. The first time I've ever worked with this gentleman, I want to make sure this thing just really goes beyond his expectation. Let's put it that way. All right, let's fill in some of the blanks now. We're just about home, gang. Really interesting stuff. Let's get that really good solid blue in here. Secondary tone in here, a little more shadow, and I'll come back with some highlight on that. And then a little bit more animation in this guy. A little deeper in some of the racing stripe. Take it across the nose. Lose it a little bit, reflect a little bit of sky in this thing, or a deeper, a little more vertical shot at it. Change a little bit of the tempo. Same with this side, a little more animation. And let's fill in the blanks here. One more pass in here. Like that. Let's come back into this one. Then we'll start adding the soft touches of pastel. Give it more of an airbrush or a ghostly character to it here, hopefully. Let that dry a little bit and come back in and refinish it just a touch. Here we are. So there we are there. Let's go back in, maybe one more pass here with about a number 6 gray to get this rim to kind of drop out just a bit more. Same thing back here. Take that down just a touch more, a little more mechanical looking. Let's go to a number 7. It's going to really drop this out just a bit. Much better. Much, much better. Takes away some of the curse of it being too cute. There we are, much healthier. There you go, gang. So far so good. There it is. Basic layout there. I'm gonna do one more thing. Let's get this this shroud. We'll fine tune some of these lines a little bit. Again, a little bit of pillar thickness inside this guy. And one more pass. And put in a number 4 gray just to get that inside pillar to read for us here. Just give it more depth to it. There we are, gang. So far, so good. I think that's coming along nice. Just put a little bit of sky color in some of these fuel caps. Maybe a touch of sky in the rim, just enough to kind of give it some believability. There you go. And through here, pardon me, sky on top of the cap. And top of the cap, just real subtle. Doesn't take an awful lot to really push the information here. I think you just really want to do a good job of making sure that the surface is read really nicely. So we're ready to fly here. There it is. There's the basic, what I refer to as putting the hard points in. Hard points meaning getting some of the graphics, some of the really solid marker or media pieces put together. So it kind of maintains a bit of a control for it here. And it does not get into the place where it muddies it up or gums it up and so forth. It just keeps it. Not even a GT40 fan. I love it. Well, that's good to know. I'm not either, but nonetheless, here we go with the commission. So let's hope it works. That's funny. Very good, Shadow. So here we are. There's the overhead view, and I think just enough cosmetics now to kind of finish it out. So I'm going to switch gears here for a second. So forgive me. We'll come back in and just pick up some of the subtleties of this shape. Again, now I'm going to switch to pastel, just laying some things in. Watch what happens. You blend this stuff together. Come back up through here. Just more blending with the hands. Take some of the curse off of it being so pure. All of a sudden, in here, notice there's a real subtle blip in here. So I'm going to come back and pick up a little more of this strength of this core, just enough. Take that into play. Go a little further with it. Come back in. sky over the top of this thing, so pardon me as I mix up some color here. I'm going to find another tone that we can work with here. Let's see, where am I? Here it is. Just a little bit more of this. And notice how it's starting to change the character of that form now, because it's got a little more life to it. It's much more transparent. And I think that's the neat thing about this whole process. Let's get that core line to work real subtly here. Just add a little bit of that, a little bit more darker pastel, and just blend it in. Look how that just took that shape right into form here, and not destroy that blisters that comes out of that form. Now a little bit of reverse light here. Let's put a little bit of hot spot in that. Let's come down below here, put a little more of that into it, transfer it out. And look at the difference in those little additional things. It actually fills in the gaps here for us. I'm gonna go back here and get this. Now, I saved all that for this. We're gonna go back in and pick just a little bit of this charcoal, a little bit of light gray, and we'll pick up a Webril pad, which is W-E-B-R-I-L, which is a really interesting pad because it's almost like a cloth surface that really takes advantage of really softening some of this stuff off and gives you much more of an airbrush quality here. So I'm going to try and pick up some of the surfaces across this very subtle hood surface. So it's going to be in through here just a bit. Lay it all down first, and just subtly right in through here, just enough to come off the top of that piece, just right in through there. Let's do that. Just a little bit more brow over the top of that, and inside that little form. Now that's all laid in there. Now let's do this. Greatest tool in the world. Get an eraser back out and start to look at this and say, okay, now let's get that valley back in there. Look what that starts to do. Does that make sense? How it kind of plays into that very subtle little lift in the shape there that comes across the column. And the same with this guy here. We can come across this and reverse that up. Put a little bit of highlight in that. And again, put a little bit of highlight in through this. And then lose it. Look at how that just subtly begins to describe what those shapes are doing. That makes sense, gang? A little bit more over the top of this just a bit. Kind of lose some of the upper. And as it begins to peel in the background here, a little more tone there. Tone here. A little more tone across the number. Just kind of take it back and scrub it just a little bit more. We'll come back with more tempera in this thing to get the glass to be more, a little bolder. A little more transparency in that. And I think the surfaces now are really starting to read nicely. I think that's starting to solve the problem for us here. What do you think, folks? Going too far? Making sense? I'm going to stop there just for a moment. Can't pick some feedback up from you all. These are the guys that matter the most watching this thing unfold. So hopefully it's making some sense for you. I think that's the basic body of the, oh, let's see, there's one thing I'm missing here. Let's make sure we get that portion in through here, really rendered as well. A little bit of an offset in this intake. So there's a little bit of that going into it. And then that. Just kind of come back and just pick that up just a bit more. Blend it all together. And there it is. Notice it's going from light to dark, which is what we're after. Kind of a nice little effect to it here. Just gonna get this picked up. Let's get this shadow to come right through around this fillet here. A little bolder. And there it is. Now let's put a little bit of highlight in this, and we can get this thing to read a little bit here. Let's come to the top of that brow. We'll get some more highlight in that once we start to move in here. And down into here, just a touch more. The matter here, just want to make sure I get this intake to kind of take its place here. That just drops out just a bit more. So let's do this. Let's get that guy to kind of read nicely. Tone that back a bit. Tone that back a bit. And again, that just a touch. Well, they're pretty close to it there, gang. What do you think?
It goes straight in. I don't know. Wait a minute.
Clean this up just a little bit here. Take a bit of a pause and wait for some feedback from you guys. See what you think. That's basically the impact I'm after here, just to kind of keep it nice and soft and simple. At the same time, with a lot of character to it, it's going to get more eraser in this guy. So we can kind of bring this back just a bit more. And there it is. Now it's all a matter of subtleties here, just kind of playing through the surfaces and getting them to read a little bit. Let's put a little highlight back in this guy so we don't lose it all. A little more at the top of that crest. Take that into play. A little more highlight there. And I think we've got a pretty good case for almost a finished piece here. What do you think, gang? Coming together? Super. I hope this is helping here. Let me just get this guy back in place. I'm gonna get two fingerprinting here. I think that's the majority of what I'm looking for in terms of what the impact of the actual sketch itself is doing. I think there's some really interesting surface work here. Let's get this highlight to read a little bit more. Back in through here. Let's get a little highlight to work in there. And then right in through here, just a little bit more of that scoop. Boy, I tell you, that's starting to make some horsepower here, guys. What do you think? And if we wanted to, we can come back in and add a little bit of mystery here. So a little bit of, just a touch more of maybe a little bit of this in place, a little bit of that in place. Take some of the curse off of it being like a burned out tank. There we are. So then we come back, there it is there. Now we come back in and pick a little bit more highlight in this thing. Just enough there to kind of give it a little bit of a presence. And let's see, let's do this too. Let's get this out of here. And on the other side, with some reflected light, let's do this. Now that that's laid in here, same thing. Come back to some graphics and work right through it. That's a nice thing about pastel. How it picks up the transparency there and brings you right back to base color.
Okay. What about
and there it is. What do you think, gang? There it is, coming together here. I don't know if I'm really pleased with that one section that's through here. Let's kind of get this kind of toned back a little bit more too. Let's kind of bring these together. Not bad. Just doesn't look like it has enough drama to it here, I think. Probably use a little bit more pastel in the crash pad here so it doesn't look so distant. There we go. That's better. Anyway, there we are. There it is, GT40. I think what I'll start doing now is just gonna leave this as is, but just come back in and add a little more detail and clean up some of the paperwork and put some of the background in. So we'll kind of pick this up tomorrow a little bit, and we'll finish it all up with some background work and some pastel and some additional like logo addition and so forth, and begin to finish off the piece and get it ready to fly. So nice. Let's kind of clean this up just a bit, make sure we're in good shape. And with that thought in mind, any closing commentary at all? Let me just get this up just a bit here, guys. We'll dust this off. Real subtle, hopefully very wholesome. At the same time, a lot of background work will come in yet to kind of support the sketch itself. So we're not quite there yet, but enough to put the graphics down, and we'll start adding some tempera, some other pieces, of course, when we put it all together. And there it is. So hopefully that'll work out pretty nicely for us here, guys. I just want to make sure. Let's see, let's get this little hot spot running through the machine itself. That's good. That should look pretty good there. And let's do this and put a little bit of highlight running through here where that razor, there it is. So real subtle, but again, I just want to keep that whole process nice and easy here without getting a lot of just very delicate. There we are. There it is. Just gonna let it go at that for the time being. We're almost home with this guy. Notice I just kept it real subtle. A lot of information at the back to kind of play up where the scoop work is, where the intakes are, and a lot of shadow work inside all of that. And I think we're safe enough now. We can come back in and just add a couple of these pieces like this. You can come back in now, and just for what it's worth, pick up some of the detailing work. I'm going to come back in too tomorrow with a little bit more white pencil and to highlight side of these cut lines. And there it is, just a little more detailed work in that guy, and we'll kind of finish it off as we go here. So really want to thank you very much. Carson, Carolina, hey, absolutely, hey, how you doing? Carolina, the Germans were trying to say we're obvious king. Yeah, it's, I miss a few here. And you can kiss my whatever you will. And anyway, I'm good to have you on board there, Carolina. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was just busy kind of finishing up the sketch here to get a chance to respond in kind here. So I think we'll kind of let that go for the time being here for the day. I just want to let that settle down a little bit, maybe take a peek at it tomorrow before we start the stream and get back into this thing. And I'd love to see Doc see Audi R8. Well, I'll tell you what, you're on board there, Carson. We'll just give that a run. How's that? Maybe a couple of streams away, we'll kind of look at that beauty and put in a little bit of a future think on the R8 and see what comes up with this thing. So it'll be kind of fun to do. So thanks for the suggestion. That'd be kind of fun to do. So here's the GT4 that's getting ready to go out, and as I said, tomorrow we'll kind of wrap some things up here if time permits. I'm going to go back in and look at some things. For example, I have a bit of graphics. I've got the track layout here, and I've got the 24-hour Le Mans piece ready to go. Hey, Carson, how are you? Thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. So it's good to have you on board again. Long time no speak and no see. So we'll kind of keep things moving here, and I promise I'll put on the list to get a nice future advanced concept R8 and see what you think of that. That'll be fun. So salute. Thank you very much. Here we are, gang. No, I just want to do one last thing here. Oh, sorry, I just want to make sure we don't miss a little detail here. We're on the Gulf band. A little more definition in this piece. Slow it down just a bit. And maybe one last push, just enough here to kind of get that shadow in it. There's not enough contrast here. Anyhow, there it is, gang. So there we are. Let's just kind of wrap this thing up here, give it a good run, and thank you so much, Carson, Nemo, Shadow, everybody rolling in here. Really appreciate you taking the time to kind of join us here with this little exercise. And as I said, we'll pick it up tomorrow and really get some things moving with this commission piece. I'm going to buy this print, seriously. Okay, when we get it all done, we'll give it a shot. How's that, Carson? We're good. I've got to get the background in, some of the track detail work, and some of the 24-hour Le Mans graphics. So I'm going to pick it up tomorrow and make sure we get this all taken care of nicely here. So let me just, something bothered me about this little piece right in through here. I don't know what that is. Anyway, let's kind of make that matter here. How do I do that? Yeah, let's kind of get that. Just doesn't look right here. Quite right. That's better. There we go. That's got it. All right, that's looking pretty strong there, guys. So once again, thanks so much for joining me here today. And done deal, you're in. Sounds like good to me. Send it along with the auto. Yeah, the auto union I still have too. That'd be great. We'll get a print of this thing when it's all said and done, and get that on to excuse me, Carson. And thank you so much for joining forces today. Very simple exercise. A lot of hard graphics, getting some of the hard points in with the marker, and then just softening it all off and kind of blending the surfaces together with the pastels. Really makes a huge difference. So tomorrow I'll come back in, get the background taped off, put some of the graphics in place, and put a little more temper in this thing. Just kind of finish it up and let it sparkle a bit here. So you can kind of now draw me an Alpine A110 on a rally stage, and we have there you go, a trifecta. That sounds like, put those two on the list. That's a great suggestion, Carson. Thank you. So here we go. And again, please feel free. If I've said something wrong here today, please tell me. If I've done something right or said something right, please tell me. I'm looking forward to building my following here on the streams. Just really interesting how I'm trying to build the audience here. So if anybody's interested in seeing design stream work or illustration work on my stream, please pass the word along. I would greatly appreciate it. And again, if you have anybody who's interested in drawing skills or lesson plans and so forth, please visit drcontrast.com. I can be found there with a series of 9 lessons and really interesting to look at. So again, thank you so much, gang. And I will send the stream because I think it's the most important part of the whole process, and it's simply this. I cannot resist it because it's true. Last but not least, never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2:30. So thank you so much. All the best. Bye-bye now.